Hey, welcome to Soul Hub. So in this week's episode, we're discussing how to be in relationships with those in your family or with friends when people are on a different path than you. And it's actually a question that comes from Faina, who says, I've come so far on my path, but people in my family seem to be nowhere near me. So how do I have a relationship with them? It's a very good question. I think a lot of people on the awakening path have to deal with this issue. And it can actually bring up, like usual, a lot of traps. The first trap that comes to mind is thinking that the people around you in your life need to be on a similar path as you, or need to have a similar understanding as you, for you to be in a close, loving, intimate, or whatever relationship with them. And the answer is actually they don't. It's only really, what I've discovered, it's only really the ego that needs others to have our similar belief system as us to, feel very connected to them. And because the ego operates only from mental positions, ideologies, identifying with certain belief systems. And so it creates a sense of self around those belief systems. And when others don't share them, it feels like that's a threat to its sense of self, especially if others outright oppose them. And so then when it sees others as a threat, it finds it very difficult to have a harmonious or loving relationship with them. And so that's the first kind of trap to be aware of, is that do you find yourself needing others to believe what you do, or needing them to understand your path, or needing them to be on your path? If so, know that that's not spirit. Even if it's telling you, oh, it's for their own good, it's not for their own good. You don't know actually what's for their own good. Even if you believe that what you are doing is the ultimate truth and that it leads to peace, you don't know what another person actually needs in this moment in their life. You don't know. They could need to go through a certain amount of suffering before they awaken. That could be just what they need. You can preach all you want, but it makes no difference. So that's the first thing. Just be aware of that if that's the case. Now, if that's not the case and you just find yourself not resonating with people in your life because maybe their interests are something completely different than yours, maybe they're interested in kind of what you see as the superficial stuff of this life that doesn't have any real depth or meaning, and you would rather kind of be in this inner space of quietness or nature, or, in an inspired state, and they're kind of in drama or whatever it may be, then it's okay not to have a very close relationship. There's taboos around this. It's like, oh, especially in certain cultures, it's like, oh, it's my family. How could I, not have a close relationship with them? Well, sometimes the most loving thing to do is to distance yourself, but be very careful here. Are you distancing yourself out of resistance? Is there any sense of needing to escape, of withdrawing, of energetic contraction around your distancing yourself from other people? If there is, it's unlikely that that is the best path, unless, of course, they're being abusive or they're outright violating your free will. Right? So that is a different thing. Then you remove yourself from that negativity. But if they just happen to be on a different path than you, different interests and so forth, and you find yourself wanting to withdraw from them just because you feel this sense of contraction, like you don't care about what they care about and so forth, what I would suggest is that your very path may just be being in relationship with them, simply to learn how to be non-judgmental, how to be allowing, how to be open, and how to still find the connection and the love despite that. Because here's the reality of it. All those things that you don't feel resonance with are not who they actually are. All those things are just their personality. It's just the outer shell of who they are. Who they actually are is beingness, and it's synonymous and identical to who you are. It's one. And so for you to get in touch with their beingness, you need to get in touch with your beingness. If you find yourself resisting them and not wanting to be around them, even though they're technically, not being abusive or not doing anything against your free will, you're just don't resonate with them, you see them as on a different path than you, then you're not really relating to who they are, to their being. What you're really doing is just relating to their personality, and the only thing that relates to their personality is your personality. So technically speaking, you're in your ego, and technically speaking, no matter how far you think you've come on the spiritual path, you still have work to do. Because if you were being in your being, you could connect to them and their being, see who they truly are. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily are going to spend the whole day with them. You literally just might not get along in that way. You might not enjoy spending time together, and that's okay. But there's a difference between just not enjoying spending much time with someone and you each do your own thing, and that's okay for both people, versus trying to be resistant to someone or withdraw or you know, have conflict with others because they're not on the same path as you. That is where the real work would lie for you if that's the case. So that is a very, very important point to be very clear on, is like what is actually occurring with you in your relationship. And then, you know, if there are friends that you no longer resonate with, I mean, sometimes the flow of life will be that some relationships will drop away naturally. But be careful. Are they dropping away out of your resistance, or are they just dropping away out of self-love, out of self-respect, out of the fact that you just feel completely not drawn to certain people anymore? And there's no resistance in it. There's no pushing it away. You just don't feel it. Then you follow your inner guidance, and if it says, you know, don't do this, versus don't, you know, you have friends that you used to go out with drinking and out partying and you just no longer feel drawn to that, then you just respect that and no longer feel drawn to that. If they take it personally, that's on them, right? Because people are always afraid to have the disapproval of others, so they're trying to, you know, get approval, and they end up going along with others for that reason. So if that's the case, notice that within yourself. Be okay with others' disapproval. If they don't want to be your friend anymore, then, you know, they weren't true friends to begin with. And usually what will happen is others will come in to fill that void that are more of a resonance to who you truly are. Again, if you didn't move away out of resistance. That's really the key, as you notice. It's noticing your inner state of consciousness regarding any of this. Are you resisting? Are you allowing? That's it. If you are being in a relationship with as little resistance as possible, that's great. That could mean you start seeing the person for who they really are and form a closer relationship, or that could mean inner guidance tells you to just kind of have your own space, and that could be fine too. That could be harmonious too, whatever it may be. But it's the energy with which you're doing it. That's always what matters most, not what you're actually doing. And that is what you need to pay attention to in relationships. Always be careful from the other trap that the ego can have, which is a trap of superiority. Often we can see, oh, look where I am at, look what I understand, look how much I've come, look where they're at. And often that's actually the ego's voice having judgment, seeing the others that are nowhere near you as lower than you versus just different path. All right, so it's about seeing the perfection of everyone's path. It's about seeing that everyone's actually exactly where they need to be. They shouldn't be any further than they are, because they're not. Simple as that. Everyone is exactly where they need to be. We cannot judge at this level what's in the best interest of anyone. It's only on the highest level of unfathomable infinite intelligence that can be judged. And so the humble, the loving thing to do is to accept others for who they truly are, because that's the only way you truly love them, is to just accept them as they are. That can often bring you closer together. If it doesn't, then you're not moving away by pushing them away. You're just turning within, and often that's, you know, remains harmonious. So I hope that helps. That's a great question. As always, please send your questions to support@soulhub.com, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.